It was another quiet night at the office. No phone calls, no messages, nothing but junk mail and overdue bills to keep me company. Seems nobody wants to hire a real private dick anymore, a professional like me. A guy who does the detective work nobody else wants to do. A guy who wears hats and walks around in a black and white world. I began contemplating a more profitable line of work, like politics.
We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to you.
May 30, WCRN. All right, we got to go. All right, folks, good afternoon and welcome. We'll try this again from the top. From the Thursday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on Radio Central AM 830 WCRN. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, and for the remainder of this hour, you can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. And of course, you can text us in real time. Our text line is 617-297-8388. 617-297-8388. It appears on a screen here in the studio in real time. We try to incorporate it into the conversation. Some of you, I know, can't always make the call at this time. And don't forget, you can listen to the show anytime, either on the WCRN replay link or the fact that this show is turned into a podcast, and you can subscribe to it wherever you subscribe to your podcast. That would be Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play, etc. You know the drill. And we do stream 24/7, like thousands of other radio stations do, on the TuneIn app. So if you don't have the app, seconds to download it, punch in WCRN. You're going to see our cool logo there. Do me a favor, hit it so that we know you're there, and then we're very easy to find. You can also watch and listen, because we do stream the show live on Facebook, both WCRN Facebook YouTube channel, as well as my social media platforms at Joe Mangi Show. And that's going to be Facebook, X, Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, and of course, you can also watch it on Rumble. We do stream live to the Rumble channel as well. So this, folks, is a sad day on a lot of fronts. It's the 24th anniversary of 9/11, which, of course, we'll acknowledge and talk about. But we watched an incredible earth-shattering event yesterday, the live, on-air assassination of a political figure. And political violence is not new to America. We all know the names: Abraham Lincoln, John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King. Towering figures cut down by assassins. But here in the 21st century, political violence has morphed into something even more insidious. It's not only presidents and civil rights leaders anymore. Today, the targets are senators, congressmen, governors, judges, journalists, activists, embassy workers, and even the families of those who we serve. In recent years, I've seen a troubling pattern. While political violence has come from both sides historically, the overwhelming number of perpetrators in the past decade lean left. The 2017 baseball shooting of Congressman Steve Scalise by Bernie Sanders supporter, the violent Antifa-inspired attacks on federal courthouses, the attempt on Justice Brett Kavanaugh's life, the mobs targeting conservative speakers on college campuses, and now the latest outrage, the live on-air assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. And let's be clear, Charlie Kirk's murder was a political assassination in the rawest form. We haven't seen a brutal killing captured live on television like this since John F. Kennedy's motorcade in Dallas. The shock and horror were eerily similar to Donald Trump's near fatal shooting in Butler, Pennsylvania. Both men targeted not for who they were personally, but for what they represented politically: free speech, conservative values, and resistance to leftist ideology. And tragically, it doesn't stop there. Just months ago, two Jewish embassy workers were gunned down outside a Jewish museum in Washington, D.C., by a man driven by anti Israel hatred, an act dripping with the same ideological violence that fuels so many of these attacks. We also can't ignore another disturbing trend. Recent school shooters who have been identified as transgender or non binary. This isn't a coincidence. It reflects a deeper cultural confusion and instability that is now spilling in to deadly violence. The truth is, political violence doesn't just take lives, it chills free speech. It intimidates judges, lawmakers. It makes decent people think twice about running for office. And ultimately, it erodes the foundation of our republic. The peaceful transfer of power and the idea that disagreements are settled through debate and persuasion, not bullets and bombs. So today we mourn in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination. We recognize the broader pattern from Trump and Butler to embassy workers in D.C., from Gabby Giffords to Melissa Hortman, and we confront the cultural rot fueling it. And we must ask, where do we go from here? Can America restore respect for the rule of law, or are we headed toward more bloodshed in our politics? 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. And I'm going to invite into the conversation Scotty Hughes, who is a fellow, senior fellow with, why am I getting a no?
No.
Scotty, take me out of audition. Okay. Why would that be happening? Okay. Well, if Scotty and George, if you can call in the call-in line, and we'll take it from there. Meanwhile, folks, the lines are open and available at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. That's how you can.
Hi, George.
Conversation.
WCRN, what's your first name?
Hey, this is Scotty.
Scotty, hold on. Thank you so much.
And all right. So what we'll do is we have to go traditional phone here. Man, Scotty Hughes, welcome to the Joe Mangiacotti Show. Sorry for the technical difficulties here. Good afternoon. Thank you for taking time and joining us.
Well, absolutely. Especially on such a historical day. And it's historical. It's what I'm now I think we're going to start calling the turning point of America in honor of Charlie Kirk. And
exactly. And very interesting that that was his baby, right? Turning Point. What, 12 years ago, I think, maybe?
It's 2011 when he first started. I think Turning Point itself was birthed in 2014, but the foundation was then.
Got it. So, first of all, let me point out that, Scotty, you've had a lengthy relationship with Charlie. When he was starting out, you were already on the political scene. And also, let me invite into the conversation George Landreth, president of the Frontiers of Freedom as well. But Scotty is also a fellow senior fellow at the Frontiers of Freedom Institute with me. And tell me a little bit about your long time relationship and friendship with Charlie, Scotty.
So mine is a bit different from everybody else that you're hearing from today. I was with Charlie, and our friendship developed before he was known as this conservative celebrity that had these great, huge conventions and the engagement, the campus conversations. I started in Charlie back in 2011. He was still in college, and he was going up and down the various political conventions with his flyers, and he was doing everything he could to urge Republicans to not continue to ignore the youth vote. At that stage, the Democrats basically owned it, thanks to MTV. They rocked the vote. And so I think that majority of older Republicans had written it off and said, that's not going to be our goal anymore. And Charlie said, no, that's the future of the Republican Party. And I think that was also what scared a lot of people, is the fact that he was so, in just a small relative amount of time, but a lot of hard work on his part, he inspired more and more students to switch over from that automatic assumption that MTV was telling them that they had to be a Democrat and to look at the Republican Party. And to a certain extent, he made conservatism cool enough. And, if you can make it cool enough for a teenager to take it on, it's pretty hip.
Yeah. Okay. Is George on too?
Yeah.
George, okay. George, welcome into the conversation. We're going to have to take a break in a moment, so I don't want to get too deep into this stuff. But before coming into the studio, the FBI released a picture of a suspect. This would be suspect number 3, because we had 2 taken into custody yesterday, and then they were released hours later. And okay, that seems odd to me, but they have to follow every lead. So they've released a picture. Looks like a young man, maybe early 20s. He was all dressed in black, but they found a high-powered bolt-action rifle in the wooded area and a boot print. So we can talk a little bit about this manhunt and what's going on there, maybe when we come back on the other side. But the fact that we are at this point coming to about 24 hours after the assassination, and we don't have a suspect in custody, is your first reaction, George and Scotty, that's not good? Or do you think there's more going on we just don't know yet?
I think there's a lot going on, and I think they've talked about getting fingerprints, footprints, and palm prints and things like that. So I have a feeling they have a lot of data and information that is going to make it very clear. So once they get the guy, they'll have pretty, I think, convincing evidence that it was him. He won't be able to say, what are you talking about? I wasn't here. I was at home playing video games.
Yeah. We do have to take a pause here. We got to take a break. We're against the clock. That's just the way it works, folks. So we're going to take our first break on the Thursday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central. We'll be back on the other side, 508-871-7000. Back in 2 and 10, folks.
Looking for a fuel and food stop that truly stands out? Experience the Yatco difference. At Yatco, we're dedicated to bringing you the best customer service, the highest quality products, and a commitment to making your life on the go easier. Yatco has 15 convenient locations across central Massachusetts, and now our newest spot at 75 Quonsigamut Ave in Worcester. Yatco, where every stop keeps you going.
Join us at the corner of fresh and familiar. North Star Music, New England hits that made radio great. Evenings at 8 on Radio Central WCRN.
Did you know your business loses $1,685 per employee each year? Poor health doesn't just mean sick days. It drains energy, lowers productivity, and impacts your bottom line. I'm Kelly Hamilton, certified holistic nutritionist, ICU nurse, and owner of A Better Path to Wellness. I help businesses create healthier workplaces so employees thrive and companies save money. Let's optimize the wellness and productivity of your team. Call 774-253-4934 today.
With Pastor L.R. Shelton.
My friend, that is declaring your and over again what you are, what God has showed you.
That's the Voice of Truth broadcast each weekend on this station.
And I seen for an event, my answer, Ziti. For that special catered event in your home, a church, temple, or a meeting house, Ziti's Restaurantes. Speedway Plaza in Westboro.
I'm Lee Gaudette from Gaudette Insurance and the Gaudette Insurance Show. You're listening to Radio AM.
All right, folks, welcome back here to the Thursday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. You can join the conversation at 508-871-7000 to join it. That's 508-871-7000. Lines are open and available. Joining me in studio or virtually in studio as well, Scotty Hughes, a senior fellow at the Frontiers of Freedom Institute out of D.C., and, of course, George Landreth, president of the Frontiers of Freedom Institute. Both have relationships with Charlie Kirk in the past. And I know, George, you just released an essay, an article at ff.org literally before I came in, so I didn't get to read it. Would you like to tell us what to expect there?
Sure. Well, I mean, basically, it talks about the assassination, how it was tragic, and how, of course, there's a rising tide of left-wing political violence. And then, but I tried to have the article mostly focused on, Charlie Kirk, his assassination is not just merely the loss of a man, and I think a remarkable, very good man, but it's the silencing of one of America's most articulate defenders of faith, of freedom, and of America's constitutional order. And so he is, Charlie was a believer in God, and he recognized, as our founding fathers did, that liberty comes from God, not from government. And that conviction, I think, made him a champion of the Constitution and America's unique tradition of opportunity for all. And that perhaps is what made him a target for those on the extreme left, because those who increasingly despise both God and freedom saw Charlie as their enemy.
Sure. He had a very, very strong faith, and I probably best remembered for that. And I think at one interview, he actually said, when asked, what would you want to be most remembered for, which is an odd question to ask a 30-year-old, right? But it was his faith, he said. Now, even though Tim Kaine recently told us that our rights come from government, by the way, they don't. Because if they do come from government can take them away or alter them at will, if that's the source of them. So, and even whether you're a Christian, a Jew, Buddha, Muslim, you're believing in a higher power, and you need to believe that's where our rights do, and inalienable rights. So that, I think, is what he's going to. But Scotty, let me direct to you. You've had this long history with Charlie. You watched, you were friends with him over the years as he built Turning Point, as he became this incredible figure within the right or the conservative movement, especially in the youth. Do you think he ever imagined where he'd be and what that movement at 18 years old when he was starting this, and what he would accomplish by 31?
So the easy answer to that is to say yes. But I would not say that about everybody, because when he was young, he was so determined. That same determination. It's been interesting, and maybe this is the parental side of me coming out, because like I said, at that point I was 32 years old. So, and I did have two kids. I had a 5 and a 6-year-old. So I was used to watching youth, maybe not an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old, but you could tell that he had that determination about it. Listen, you go to these conventions and you see all these kids that are excited, but I don't think they realize what the life is like for a young person who is a conservative and has the passion for conservative principles and pushing a conservative agenda. You're not very popular. You're not going to be the person that's invited out to the bars or to the strip clubs or to go drinking and do bar crawls. That's not who you become. And he knew that even if he was interested in it, and he wasn't, it would only distract from his message, and it potentially could harm his message down the road. So he was always laser focused on making sure that was the priority. When people thought of Charlie Kirk, especially in the beginning, they thought of someone that they could trust, someone with integrity, somebody with high morals and ethics, because he knew he had a hard bill to sell to the Republican Party. Come on, let's talk about it. We talk about how, there's so many old guys, and guess what? We're young in Republicans, all three of us here. We're talking about the 80s and 90-year-olds that are, but it was even older, I feel like, in the 2010s, that if you were below the age of 55, you were considered a young whippersnapper in politics. And he was definitely the youngest of the young. And he was having to prove himself to all of us. I mean, if you remember what it was like in the beginning of the Tea Party, everybody who was anybody was discounting anybody that called the words grassroots. In fact, conservatism was a bad word. That was the C word. You didn't want to be a conservative. Oh, that's almost as bad as what we consider right-wing extremists now. So he was by himself. So yes, I think he knew that he had the drive, and he proved to himself he was not going to give up until it was a success. Now, let me say this. I did see Talking Point evolve, and most organizations do, from being truly,
campus events. And then all of a sudden, you saw that Charlie Kirk became this friends with Donald Trump Jr., and we saw fireworks and $1,000 tickets. It just became absolutely wild. Then we started to see Charlie Kirk start to tame back down these last 2 years. He became a husband and a father. You really saw him start to once again get into his stride of being a more traditional activist organization that still kept its pulse and involvement in the community, and especially college campuses.
Yeah, I would say that sums it up. I mean, he's been friends now with the Trumps for a long time, and so I'm sure this has affected him. And I saw Laura Trump on last night, and of course we all watched the president's address on Truth Social. But I got to tell you, there were some very eerie similarities to what we watched yesterday in Butler, in the sense of, the difference an inch makes in Butler, Pennsylvania, was very obvious after yesterday. And George, how will this affect the youth in the conservative party or the conservative movement going forward? Has this put an end to it? Has it dampened it, or is this just because, in my opinion, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of Charlie Kirk-ish young Republicans or young conservatives ready to take up the mantle?
You make a very good point. I tend to think that what they've done is make him a martyr. And I tend to think that, for example, his death is a painful reminder of the stakes we face and the challenges that we face as a nation. And he was fighting on behalf of those. And I think he had convinced a growing number of youth that he was looking to make America a better place for them. And I was revive the American dream, for example. So many young people now think they'll never own a home. They'll never be able to have financial security. And I think he was trying to make it clear, freedom and opportunity are awesome. And so I think if the forces of hate and control succeed in silencing voices like him, then of course our nation's future will grow darker. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think his death will awaken Americans to the reality of the threat, and his voice will not be silenced. It will echo louder than ever before. At least that's my prediction.
Scott, do you agree with that?
I absolutely agree with that. And I also have to think that you're going to see, I do think you are going to see a change in how rallies are handled, how, we saw a little bit of a change after Butler for President Trump. I think you're going to have, I hope it's, we now know that we must keep our speakers safe, and we need to be a little bit more vigilant. But not, like, there's so many questions out there right now that need to be answered. And I think that will also help figure out where we go as a country and the future of the freedom of speech and public gatherings are going to be.
Yeah. On the note here of just what's going on now, is it concerning you guys that we're approaching 24 hours after and we don't have the person in custody? Now, they just within the hour released a picture, but we also saw 2 people detained yesterday, and I wonder, well, why? I mean, this has been fairly transparent, but we don't know what we don't know. They've released the fact that they found the rifle. They found a boot print. Boots can be thrown away. I don't understand, if you're going to abandon the rifle in that wooded area, why not just leave it on the roof? So what caused them to leave it in the woods? These are things, and maybe I just look at things differently or weirdly. I don't know, but things don't add up to me. How does this sit with you? Are you concerned that someone is in custody yet? George, you first.
Sure. I'd love, obviously, for the person to be in custody already, but it sounds to me like they are very systematically gathering evidence, and they're even going through, they know what neighborhood he escaped through, meaning that because they've looked at cameras, if they're going through those neighborhoods, I think, to get Ring doorbell camera film to get more information. And I think what they're really trying to do is not just find who he is, but also make sure they gather all the evidence so that once they arrest him, there's a 100% chance that he's convicted, because they'll have a mountain of evidence against him, everything from fingerprints to DNA on doorknobs that he, or banisters, he's going up the staircase, different things like that. So I think there's a lot of good, good things they're doing, and I hope it happens fast.
Yeah. Like I said, we don't know what we don't know. They're going through this. There's just a massive investigation going on, and they are going through URLs, searches, cell phone data, GPS location, stuff that we can't even imagine that's happening and taking place. But what was interesting, or I found interesting, is, and I really have not been exposed to Governor Cox. So do either of you familiar with the governor of Utah? Because I was impressed with his speaking. I thought he spoke very well. And B, as he laid out that we will find you, we will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law, and you'll be punished. But then he took the time to remind everyone that Utah still has the death penalty.
Yeah.
So I think he was sending a very clear message there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know the governor well, but I knew him a little bit, and I've known a lot of people who've worked with him and for him and things like that. And I think he's generally well respected. It's not to say that, there's not obviously a lot of liberal Democrats in Utah. There are some, though. And he's not popular with them. With the rest of the state, I think he is.
Okay. Well, we got to pause here. We're going to take the mid-show break here on the Thursday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN, reminding folks that you can join the conversation for the remainder of the hour at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Stick with us, folks. We're going to be back in 2 minutes and 2 seconds on the other side.
Time now for the forecast from the Boston Independence Group Weather Center. Call Jerry Doherty today at 877-772-1776. Retirement is within reach.
I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear, and here's the latest Boston 25 weather on Radio 830 WCRN. It's going to be bright. It's going to be mild today. We've got high temperatures in the mid and upper 70s. A few spots could even hit 80 degrees. Cold front will come through later this afternoon and evening with just a little bit of cloud cover, but that leads the way to a cooler forecast for the day tomorrow. For your Friday plans, count on low 70s. I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear, and you can hear Boston 25 live for the morning drive weekdays on AM 830 WCRN.
More live and local radio is next. Stay tuned to Radio Central, 830 WCRN.
What if your body already knows how to heal? It just needs the right support to do it. Bioregulatory medicine is a total body and mind approach to health that works with your body, not against it. It's a safe, gentle, drug-free, and proven medical model that supports your natural ability to regulate, adapt, regenerate, and heal without side effects. Whether you're seeking to restore health or prevent illness, bioregulatory medicine offers a smarter path forward. Take control of your health with knowledge. Visit brmi.online home of the Bioregulatory Medicine Institute, a nonprofit global leader offering a powerful free library of trusted resources, articles, podcasts, videos, and more, all at your fingertips. Visit brmi.online. That's brmi.online.
All right, folks, welcome back here to the second half of the Thursday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Reminding you, you can join the conversation for the remainder of the hour at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. That's how you get into the studio for two-way talk and conversation. Today, flying the board, and he'll get you set up and into the studio. Also joining me is George Lander, the president of the Frontiers of Freedom Institute out of D.C., where I am also a senior fellow with George. And, today we're mourning the death of Charlie Kirk in maybe examining, and maybe we should pause on that. I don't know. The larger ramifications, the larger meaning of what happened, what we watched, and the fact that this is the first time in a long time, George, that we watched a assassination in real time on American soil. That's not something that we've seen for decades. Yeah, absolutely. To something Scotty said about keeping speakers safe and changing, and I don't know how much we can change this. I mean, Charlie did these outdoors. That was his thing, was going to the campuses and just going to the courtyards, the quad, whatever you want to call it, not doing these indoor stuff. I mean, he's done them, yeah, but it was everybody. And the man would talk to anybody that was willing to talk to him, right? He was doing this Prove Me Wrong tour, and he didn't care who you were, where you were coming from, because he was always talking about the issue, right? I never saw him raise his voice or get out of control, and he let everybody have their talk. It usually frustrated the people that came up to talk to him more, because he was articulate. He was very good at what he did and what he said, and they would get very frustrated with this. But how much can we change this? I mean, does this cause us never to do an outdoor rally or speech again, unless you're on the right side of the political aisle? I mean, how much can we let this change, and how much security could be there? This is wide open, and he has a security team. There was the university had their security, and there were actually Utah State Police there. So there were a lot of people, but given that situation, he was shot from a long distance with a high-powered rifle. Look, I've been told by experts in this industry of security and executive protection, if somebody wants somebody dead, it can happen, and that includes the president of the United States. How often is Donald Trump out in the open? And Secret Service are very good at what they do, but it's possible to happen. So is this going to change? Is this going to dampen the voice, or are we back to people are going to take the risk and they're going to speak loud and proud again? Yeah. Right. Right. Sure. Yeah. Very similar to what the president is behind. Yeah. Yeah. I agree 100%. And if anything, what happened yesterday makes me more inclined to stay strong and speak louder. And there's been times I think where I've tempered my opinion in certain mixed, company or situations because it wasn't worth the effort. But I can't let what they did to Charlie Kirk dampen that or stop me from that. We're speaking with George Landreth, president of Frontiers of Freedom Institute out of D.C. It's a think tank that I'm the privilege to be a senior fellow with. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. George, let's jump to the phone for a second. Tyler has been waiting patiently on the line. Tyler, you'd like to jump in for a second? We'll get Tyler set up here. Hold on. Is Tyler gone? All right, he's probably calling in again. So, George, we'll let Ted take care of that, and he's probably jump back on. But 508-871-7000, and don't forget that we do have our text line up and running at 617-297-8388. 617-297-8388. If you'd like to text instead, you're welcome to do that. All right, do we have Tyler? All right, Tyler, go ahead. Oh, Mark, I'm sorry. Mark, go ahead, Mark.
They say, last I heard about noontime news, this guy's still at large. For crying out loud, he was clever enough to pull off what he did. He's clever enough that he could hotwire a car. And holy mackerel, he's in Utah. He could be in greater Los Angeles by now.
Yeah.
Heck, he might not even be in the country anymore. You get my drift.
I do get it. And it's the reality of it is he could be anywhere at this point. And the fact that they were not able to close that net almost immediately is concerning.
You mentioned quite a few times you work in private security, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. So from the time that guy entered the university property, from what I've seen of it, it's like a little city in and of itself.
Yep.
The place is huge.
Mm-hmm.
So from the time he entered the security perimeter of that, we'll call it a compound, between that time and the time that he got on the roof, there's got to be a picture of this dude, maybe 20 pictures of this dude on their own security cams. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. And there's the thing, and thank you for the call, is, again, folks, there is a level of investigation going on that we don't know. But harvesting every second of every cell phone, every security camera, Charlie had his own camera crew there too. So you had TV, you had the podcasters, you have cell phones, you got 2,000 plus college students. Show me a college student without a smartphone and a camera on it. So they've got to literally shift through, just thousands of hours of video. To Mark's point, yes, they're reversing this. They're looking for commonalities of people who would have been in certain areas and key areas. Don't forget that they're also going to check all the key card entries to these buildings because he had access to a roof. Well, did he use a ladder? Did he enter the roof from the internal stairway and get on the roof that way? These are things we don't know and they're not letting out. So we got to see how time goes by. I hope, and George Boyer, I hope that this doesn't end up into the Butler. We don't know anywhere near what we should know about the Butler, Pennsylvania attempted assassination and so forth. Again, let's try Tyler one more time. Is he set to go? Tyler, you want to jump in here for a second?
Hey, Tyler. Hey, how are you guys? I can hear you earlier. Joe and George, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now, Tyler. You're good to go.
It's it's truly sickening when we live in a culture where the one time I got mad and yelled at President Biden was he just said we want to put him in the crosshairs. This is from a society where, as you've all noted, stained by the blood of the innocent. I mean, the Kennedy, Martin, Malcolm, and Medgar Evers on that is insane. The true attempt to listen Trump. This is quieting someone who would be a future Trump because the devil doesn't like the truth. And the truth speaks for itself. And to this poor lady and their two kids, they can't talk to dad. Dad would try to bring people up to talk about issues. Never again do you speak outdoors without a ballistic barrier, without a corner and a quad and a roof fleet and drones. You guys are forgetting the security they give this gentleman is nothing like what they would give a president, and they didn't check their weapons. This was an easy open market. Shut it down immediately. And to think that after hearing and seeing the words of hatred and the acts of evil, when the Speaker of the House says, can we have a moment for this poor man Kirk, and those schools object. The same schools objected at the moment when they mentioned in Butler that poor fireman died, gave his life diving on someone.
Yeah, Corey perished in that Butler, Pennsylvania situation. But yeah, there is a big question as to what is this going to change for security and so forth. Tyler, thank you for the call. George, we look back here, right? We can go back to Gabby Gifford shooting in 2011. We had the Steve Scalise baseball field shooting. That was done by Bernie Sanders, bro. And he specifically wanted to make sure who the Republican players were. We got to throw the attempted kidnapping of Governor Whitmer in there. But quite frankly, the more we find out about that, the more we find out that that was actually kind of a setup. And there were more FBI operatives involved in that than the buffoons that they used as useful idiots. Then you got Judge Esther Salas's son murdered at home. Remember, the poor he went to murder her. The son answered the door and executed in the front door. The attempted assassination of Justice Brett Kavanaugh, right? The kid travels halfway across the country to take him out. We had the bizarre attack on Paul Pelosi in his home. Probably a lot more to that story than we know. 2 attempts on Donald Trump's life. Butler, Pennsylvania shooting. And then, of course, Ruth, which we're in the middle of seating the jury. Assassination of Rep. Melissa Hortman. Murder attempt on Senator John Hortman. Arson attempted on Governor Josh Shapiro's residence. And, of course, the assassination of Charlie Kirk live on air yesterday. And don't forget the killing of the 2 Jewish embassy workers in D.C. as well. But we have to take a third and final break here, folks. So stick with us. We'll be back in 2 and 10.
This is Jerry Doherty, host of Making Money Last, right here on WCRN. Like all business owners, I'm interested in why people choose to work with Boston Independence Group. So I asked my clients. The most common response, Jerry does not try to be all things to all people. Boston Independence Group is specialized, focused solely on retirement planning. My customers enjoy the difference. We do one thing, and we do it exceptionally well. Help other people live better in retirement. That's it. If you're ready to retire or making plans to retire, we can do for you what we've done for hundreds of other retirees throughout New England. Live better in retirement. Just give me a call. I'll show you how. My toll-free number is 877-772-1776. Again, that number is 877-772-1776. And you can visit us on the web at bostonindependencegroup.com. bostonindependencegroup.com.
When it's time to move, don't just move, Mighty Move. At Mighty Movers, they have been helping families relocate safely and affordably since 2017. Whether you're going across town or across state lines, their experienced crew brings muscle and the hustle to make your move stress-free and budget-friendly. They specialize in local and long-distance moves, from cozy apartments to big family homes. They handle it all with care, speed, and professionalism. Got a piano? gun safe, or hot tub? No problem. Their specialty moving services are designed for the heavy stuff most movers just won't touch. So why settle for basic move when you can move mighty? Call 978-793-6165 or visit mightymoversma.com, mightymoversma.com, and start your move the mighty way. Mighty Movers, moving you forward one mighty mile at a time. All right, folks, welcome back for the fourth and final segment here on the Thursday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central. I am Joe Mangiacotti. You can join the conversation for the time we have left together here at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. George Landreth is joining me from the Frontiers of Freedom Institute out of D.C. And George, this there's going to be consequences to this when it comes to political violence, right? This is going to, or will it put a chill on free speech? Will it deter citizens from public service? Is it going to escalate rhetoric into real world bloodshed? And on that, I mean, the rhetoric that we've been hearing, I mean, how often can you talk? And I know the left wants to say, oh, the right and the conservatives, their speech is horrible and it's this and that. And there was a guy, was it Dowd or somebody? CNN, I think they fired him within a few hours because he basically came on and said it was Charlie Kirk's fault that he was murdered because, you know, he spoke up. So he was justified. And I think CNN fired him before the end of the business day yesterday. So you got the left saying it's the right talk, but when I listen to people who say, well, Charlie Kirk, he would say this racial divisive stuff, and I can't find it. And then I'd see people accuse him of saying, you say racial things, and Charlie Kirk would say, okay, great, give me an example. And they never, ever were able to get one, right? Never able to give an example. Is this going to chill everything, George?
Well, I hope not. It certainly could, and I think some people may decide to be quiet because they don't want to die. But at the same time, an example would be, I think that the extreme left often calls conservatives Nazis or fascists, and that's not just slander. It's a deliberate strategy to justify violence. So if you can convince people that your opponents are Nazis, then you can rationalize almost any action against them, even murder. And so I think we have to basically call out the left on this, and America needs to wake up. Because I know a ton of people who vote for Democrats, but they're not evil people. But the people they're voting for are, because they're the ones that want to do this. They're the ones that want to overthrow our Constitution. People like Senator Tim Kaine, who wants to get rid of the Constitution and the idea that we have unalienable rights, that our rights were given to us by God, and that he and his friends in Congress do not have the right to take them away. And so I think Americans have to wake up and ask themselves, an example would be every single Democrat has voted that it's okay for girls to be raped in high school bathrooms and locker rooms. And then if a girl objects to that, then she needs to be re-educated because, doggone it, she's hateful. I think myself, not wanting to be raped is hateful. And so I think we have to basically talk to the Americans and say it's okay to not have Republicans be your favorite group. But what you can't do is vote for people like Tim Kaine and basically every other member of Congress who's a Democrat.
Yeah, unfortunately,
they're all anti-Constitution, anti-American.
Unfortunately,
wake people up.
Yeah, unfortunately, they get elected in that district, which is why Ilhan Omar, right, because she lives in this high Muslim community. I mean, who am I to talk? Because I'm in Massachusetts, and we as a state keep putting Elizabeth Warren back in. I don't support her as a candidate, much less a senator. So, maybe some of this is in term limits, but 508-871-7000. Let me slide over to the phone. Ken's been waiting patiently. Hey, Ken, what say you?
Hi, Joe.
Hey, Ken.
As far as this tempering speech, this is all but guaranteed that 90+% of all campuses will refuse to take any conservative voices on that campus.
Yeah, they're going to cite security issues. We can't guarantee it. It's too much liability. Bang.
So they want to shut down speech.
Yeah.
And so the way to combat that,
Shooting Charlie Kirk in the neck is a pretty clear indication they want to silence free speech. That's for sure.
I think those who have ideas like Charlie and need to get out should find venues outside of campuses and invite those in the campus to come and have a higher level of security as a result.
Yeah, it might move those types of things into indoor venues, which Charlie has done. But when he started this at 18, 19 years old, and you know, he dropped out of college and there was a precursor to Turning Point. I don't recall the name of it. Maybe George, you do. But then his whole thing was just visiting. I mean, he did this way back in the beginning before he had $82 million a year coming in that Turning Point has. He did it with a folding table. And half the time in the first early days, a written sign that says, you know, ask me anything. And of course, as it grew, it got a little more sophisticated. He had to beef up security. He had a 5-member security detail, you know, a couple vehicles. Then the awning came in and they put the barrier, and they had to keep increasing that. But at no time was he ever truly safe being out in the open. So yes, it might change it. Acts of terrorism like this always changes how we, the rest of law-abiding citizens, have to lead our lives, Ken.
So there's not going to be one person to replace Charlie Kirk.
No, there's going to be hundreds, if not thousands. Yeah.
There needs to be 10 to 100 preaching the discipleship of Charlie all over the country, so that the voices are magnified. So there's 5-10 times the voice volume of Charlie's teaching. Then you win.
Yeah.
I was discussing. Give up, but we give up on the nation.
Yeah, I was discussing this last night with some friends. I got a lot of calls last night. You know, people, associates, friends, family calling and say, "Well, what are you going to talk about in your show tomorrow?" Not a stretch. And that was one of the things is that this, if the calculus here was to silence Charlie Kirk, because let's face it, Ken and George, right? Charlie's responsible for really mobilizing the youth. And by him doing what he's done and speaking and preaching this, he was able to let these college-age students, many of them who either were not either Republican or conservative, or they weren't totally into the indoctrination of the far left at these universities, but they still remained silent because of the pressure, and they wanted to get a grade, and they didn't really have the confidence to go up against a nutty professor. So they stayed. But what he did, both to George and Ken, is I think that he let a lot of these students, male and female, know you're not the only one that thinks this way. You're not the only one out there, that there are those of us who question what they're jamming down our throat, those of us who have alternative points of views, and it's okay to express them. So if your calculus was to stop Charlie's momentum, because he certainly was going to play a big role in the midterms, and he has been saying it all along, that his goal was to get J.D. Vance elected to president in 2028. He was not shy about that. And it could be argued very well that Donald Trump, part of his success in 2024, was the youth vote that Charlie mobilized. So if that was your calculus, you absolutely miscalculated this, because I think that what we're going to see is hundreds of Charlie Kirk disciples speaking loud and proud, Ken.
I can't wait. That has to start happening now. And there has to be at least 25 by the end of the year that are doing it on a regular basis.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the organization's still intact. I don't know how much you know, George, about Turning Point. I know they have somewhere around 82 million in revenue to operate, which is a healthy budget. I don't know how much his wife will carry on, or who was the heir apparent, or I just hope that Turning Point continues to go forward, and maybe they can carry this on with some other, I don't know, Kirk disciples, for lack of a better term.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think obviously Charlie Kirk was unusually talented and very effective. So that doesn't mean that there's, you know, a couple hundred people out there that can just fill in his shoes and completely do the job he did. But I would argue that even if someone is just reasonably talented, then they should definitely be working on this because they can make a difference. And so if there's 25 or 100 different people that decide and are motivated by this to speak up and to work, then I think you'll see some great things happening. And I think it'll be, you kind of look throughout history and you ask yourself, sometimes people were murdered hoping to kind of shut down a movement. An example would be, go back a little over 2,000 years ago, and people wanted to kill Jesus Christ to end that movement and get rid of him. Guess what? Didn't work. And you can go throughout history. There's other people too. You know, in the United States, a religious leader named Joseph Smith was murdered by a mob, thinking that would end the movement and so forth, but didn't work. And so I think what we have to recognize is that sometimes when you make someone a martyr, all that does is motivate people to stand up for what they believed in, particularly when they believed in good things. Yeah. A perfect example of that, of course, is Christ. But even other humans who are obviously not nearly as perfect and amazing as Christ was, because they stand for truth, they're still very remarkable and important people.
Absolutely. Ken, final word before we were against the clock. You have any?
Technology is in our advantage. We'll see films of him for decades to come as guidance for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Ken, for the call. Yeah, Ken makes a good point, George, is there are how many thousands of hours of video of Charlie Kirk going back over a decade at these campuses that can be watched, studied, and digested for years to come. And I like a lot of the way he frames some of the arguments. And for the record, I didn't agree with him 100% on every issue either. But when it came to certain things, whether it was the Second Amendment or the Russian hoax or this or that, I think he was very articulate and accurate in how he set those arguments up and defended them. We're against the clock, George. Thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it. Okay. We got George is gone. Thank you, George. I appreciate it. Again, George Landreth, Frontiers of Freedom. Don't forget that this week's edition of the Weekly Report with George Landreth, Tom Donaldson, and Scotty and Hughes has dropped. So you can go to ff.org or you can go to Rumble. And, of course, you can listen to the audio here Saturday afternoon on AM 830 WCRN. I'm done for today, folks. And the Carboys, right? The brothers are in tomorrow at 1 o'clock, so tune into that. For me, it's Joe out.